Okay, so now we are still with the module number 1, in which we have seen app services and app service plan. In this particular lab, we are going to go a little deep into app services because we are going to focus on deployment slots. For your kind of information, deployment slots are going to allow you to create identical environments for your deployment. If you have ever heard about blue-green deployment, then deployment slots are a perfect implementation of that. Let's see how deployment slots are going to be created and how we can swap the development environments and production environment with that, so that we don't need to wait for updates rolling out, or maybe while rolling out the update, we are not going to have any downtime. So let's get started with this. As you can see, I have logged in into my lab environment, and I'm going to follow the steps which are mentioned in the right side part. Now, in this case, first we are going to log into Azure portal, which I have already done. And for this particular lab environment, we are going to use Cloud Shell. Remember, guys, Cloud Shell is giving you capabilities to develop a code, edit the app, and then everything is going to be done inside that. You don't need to be dependent on Visual Studio Code or any other development environment. So in this lab also, we are going to use the Cloud Shell only. So I'm just opening a Cloud Shell using this particular icon. I'm going to click on Bash. I'm going to click on my subscription, and I'll choose it. Remember one more thing, when you're going to use Cloud Shell for code editing and code running kind of a thing, then you can switch to the classic version, because classic version Cloud Shell is the one which is having actually code editor available inside that. I'm going to switch to the classic Cloud Shell, which is now open. And the next thing which I'm going to do as per instruction is I will go and clone one Git repository, which is this. Now, remember, this is one of the official Git repository of Microsoft Learning, which I'm showing you right now. So if you go to this URL, you'll see that there is a hello world sample which they have given here, and that is the exact same sample which we are going to use. So this is part of the official Azure sample, and this is that repository which we are using in this case. Now the repository is cloned successfully. That was something which was done with the first command. Now it's asking me to provide some kind of a variables inside this. Now for all these lab environments, I suggest you that whenever you have multi-line command, something like this, then I advise you that you should do that thing with the help of a notepad document. So basically, do not directly click on this type or a copy command. Instead of that, you can just open the new text document on the desktop of the lab environment or your computer, and then you can click on the type in that notepad file only. Once it is copy pasted inside the notepad file, then you're going to copy paste from here, and then you're going to use it. Now let me put another command as well. I'm going to copy paste them one by one, but let me just make sure that these commands are going to be executed in that order. In the first command, we are just trying to create some variables. So let me just paste it here, right click, paste as a plain text, and I'll hit enter. We are creating four variables right now: resource group, app name, and then we are just echoing that thing in the remaining two lines. So basically these two variables are showing me that app name is actually this one. And now after this, we are going to execute next command, which is going to change the directory. It will go inside the hello world sample application folder, and then we are going to run this command, which is az web app up. This is basically going to make sure that my web app is going to be created with this. So I'm going to paste this one also as a plain text. It's going to change the directory first, and now it's saying the web app with this particular name does not exist. Now it's going to create that app service plan and then updating if it's already there. So let's just wait for this to be executed. Now you can see it's creating a web app. Now while this is happening, I can just open my Azure portal in the separate tab, and this is a place where I can see whether these resources are really creating or not. So this is just going to do all the configurations here, and then I'm going to cross-check that in my resource group section. And inside this resource group, you can see my app service plan is available, and very soon my app service is also going to be created with this. Let's wait for this to be completed first. Okay, my app service is completed now. You can see it's showing me the source path and the other configuration which they have done. If I go back to my resource group and refresh this, it's showing me the app service plan and the app service, both are visible here. And just to check whether this app service is running or not, I'll click on the browse, and it's going to open this app service URL in the separate tab. It's a simple static HTML website. That is something which this HTML hello world is actually doing. And this website is easily deployed to my Azure portal right now. Now, let's check this thing. So I'm going to create a deployment slot now. So let me just minimize this. I'll go to my app service. In the left side of the app service, under deployment section, you have deployment slots. I'll click on this. And here also, I can add a new deployment slot and I can give whatever name I need to give. But in this lab, they are showing me to do this thing through command. Now remember, when you are focusing on certification exam like AZ-204, there are certain steps which they will tell you to do through command. And if they are telling you to do through command, you have to do it that way. I can click on add slot and I can do this thing with the UI also. But because I'm following lab instructions strictly and I want you to remember the commands as well, I'm going to execute this command now. The command is, okay, it's not typing this command here. Let me just do clear. And I'm going to use a notepad again. So I'll click on type. And then I'm going to copy this and right click and paste. If I wait for some time, the deployment slot will be created with the name staging. And obviously, I'll cross-check this by going to the browser. So let's just wait for this to complete. Okay, the execution is done. I'm going to the other tab and let me just refresh this. And you can see now we have two slots. First one, which is the default one, is a production. And the second one is actually the staging slot. So this is a staging slot, which is actually available on the separate URL. If I open the staging slot in the new tab, you will be able to see that this will look exactly like a web app, but it's not a web app. It's actually a separate deployment slot, which is created on that. So this is having a name staging, and you can see this is not a web app. This is actually a slot of that. And if I click on this default domain of this particular slot, it's actually going to show me similar kind of a website, but this is actually available on the separate tag altogether. So it's actually having a separate domain. You can see this is my actual application and this is available on this domain, while this is actually having a different one with dash staging available on that. And it's a different dummy page which is created here. My deployment slot is successfully created. Let me move forward in the lab instructions now, in which it is showing me that now you can update the code and deploy to the staging slot now. So this is exactly what every developer is going to do. He's going to change a code and then he's going to publish the updated code. But remember, when you use deployment slots, we are not going to publish this updated code directly to the production. We are actually going to update this into staging first. We will check everything is working in staging, and if that is working, then only we will swap this thing from staging to production. And this is how things works. So let me just execute this command, which is code index.html. It's a very simple HTML page which is available here. And now they are saying that let's do some changes. So inside this HTML page, I have one H1, which is saying Azure App Service Sample Static HTML site. And in this case, they are saying that use the command Control S to save this thing. Now we want to change something here. And now they are saying that you just add anything which we want. Now I'm just going to add something that this is a site, and then I'm going to specify created by Maruti Makwana. I'm just putting my name there. So I'm just saying created by Maruti Makwana. This is something which I've added here. And I'm going to save this, Control S. And this is the one change which I've done. Now, technically, this can be any code change which a developer is going to do. We are just updating this thing in the HTML file right now. And then I'm going to do Control Q, which is going to close the editor file. Once editor file is closed, this is the time we are going to zip this particular file, and then we are going to deploy this. So let me just do that command, zip r staging code.zip, and then we are putting one dot, which is basically going to zip that thing. And you can see right now, this is just adding all these files. And at the end of this, the zip is actually going to be done. And now I'm going to deploy this using this command, which is AZ web app deploy. And which web app? The one which is in this resource group with this name. And we are going to use staging code.zip in that. Remember, this time we are not pushing this code into the prod environment. We are publishing this into a staging environment, and then once staging environment is actually deployed, then we are going to check that thing. So let's see this. It's showing me deployment has successfully completed, and now I can visit the URL. I have the URL already open in my browser. This is the staging URL. I'll refresh this. And if I refresh this, I'll get the newly updated code, which is saying that this site created by Maruti Makwana, it is visible here. So this is my deployment slot specific changes which I've done. Also, just make a note of this. When I go to my actual app service website, and if I refresh this, this is my prod website. So this is not having any new changes updated here. So logically, whatever new changes you have done, you are pushing that thing to only a staging environment right now, and that is visible. Now, maybe you have a QA team, you have some other developers who are working on the same project. They can taste this website, they can check everything inside this. And if you feel that this is working fine, then maybe you can push these changes from staging to production using a feature called deployment slot swapping. So that's something which is going to happen now. Let's get started with that. So we are going to swap the staging slot and we are going to swap it with the production actually. So let's do this thing. In order to do this, I'll go to Azure portal. So let me go back to my web app. And this is a page which is actually showing me my production and staging kind of environments. On the top, we have a swap button here. So when I go to deployment slots, I have a swap button. I'm going to click on swap. And this is going to show me that please choose your source and target from which environment you want to take and in which environment you want to put it. My source is staging, my target is actually production, and that is what they are asking me to do here. Also remember one thing, when you do swapping, whatever is there in staging, that will be pushed to production, and whatever is there in production will be pushed to staging. Whenever you do swap, remember this will never overwrite. Overwriting is a bad thing. So this is not going to overwrite any code. It's actually going to swap from staging to production and production to staging. Now, maybe sometimes people ask me this question that why exactly we do this thing? The right answer is if you do overwriting, then you cannot do rollback. Swapping is a good thing because once you swap, if something goes wrong, you can swap it back. And that's something which is very important. I'm going to click on start swapping. And one more thing which I want to inform is this swapping is going to take few seconds of time. And when you're doing this thing, it's basically internally doing some IP swapping kind of a configuration. So without changing the code configuration, it's actually going to swap the redirection of these URLs associations with that. In simple words, after the swap is completed successfully, if I go to my actual production URL, it's going to show me new changes. And if I go to my staging URL, then whatever changes we have in production, now it's going to be pushed here. So basically, this is going to show me one version older with that. Let's just wait for staging to be completed with the swapping, and then we will check both the URLs after this. Okay, swapping slot is successfully done now. Let's just check this is working or not. So this is my production URL. I'm hitting refresh here, and it has the new changes which we pushed. And now this is my staging URL. And if I refresh here, it's having that production site now. So basically swap is successfully working. Now, as I said, if something goes wrong, I can swap it back and my life is going to be that easy. Now, remember, this is something which is one of the way to use the swapping. And then you can use deployment slot with swapping, which is basically talking about some concepts like blue-green deployment. Yes, if you have heard about blue-green deployment, then this is exactly the same thing which is happening here. Now, there are a few more options which are available with deployment slots, which I want to highlight. For example, if I go back to my deployment slot, there is one configuration here which is known as traffic. Now, in my module explanation, I mentioned this thing that when you have a deployment slots, you will be able to control a partial traffic diversion to your newer versions. Let's say if I have a new version available in staging and I want to check by diverting 20% traffic to that new version, and maybe I want to monitor that thing for limited period of time. I can do that thing, and you can see all I need to do is just do the 20% here. 80% traffic will go to the real production. 20% traffic will be going to the new staging environment. I can save this thing. I can monitor this thing for limited period of time. And based on that, if everything is working fine, then maybe I can do the swapping. So this kind of additional configuration is also possible in some of the requirements. Also, one last point which is important is you will be able to create this kind of multiple deployment slots. I have created only one staging slot, but in the standard plan, you can create 5 deployment slots. And if you go with premium plans, you can create even more. So basically, depends upon your app service plan, you will be able to create more staging slots. And then based on that, you can have multiple environments like blue, green, purple, or whichever you want. Oh yes, and if you're watching this video till end, then I strongly request you to please subscribe to our channel and like this particular video if you want us to record this kind of more videos for you. Also, if you're a developer and if you want to learn cloud specific development or design patterns or related topics associated with AI, feel free to inform us in the comment section of this video. We are very happy to create new videos based on your requirement. Thank you so much.